So we've got a video here by Chen, famous right-wing grifter, talking about is lying about being trans rape. Now, I don't know the etiquette for hooking up uh, with trans people or hooking up uh, as a trans person, but I imagine that it basically boils down to if you pass while naked, it's no business of any one night stand or Tinder hookup or anything like that. Now, once you get into a longer term relationship, just like anything else, you'll want to discuss your body with your partner. If your partner expects to have kids and you're an F2M person who has had bottom surgery, no matter what, there's no way you're going to uh, get there's no way you're going to have children naturally. Adoption is, of course, still an option, but uh, so that is my assumption. That seems the most logical way to handle things. If you're not passing while naked, say you're F to M and you don't have you haven't had bottom surgery, so you still got that nice big floppy girl dick, then I think, if nothing else, just for your protection, you should tell your partner before the pants come off, if for no other reason than because the trans panic defense means that they can kill you and get away with it. So, any trans girls trolling for strange out there, uh, in case you didn't know, make sure that you tell your partner before things get interesting. Let's see what Lauren has to say.
So, guys, socialist Alexandria Ocasio Cortez and Bernie Sanders recently introduced bills in Congress that'll cause your energy bills to skyrocket, which I think we can all agree is the last thing we need right now. They want to ban hydraulic fracking in the US, even though natural gas is cheaper and better for the environment, actually, compared to fossil fuels. It's
This is an interesting thing because natural gas is, I would say, definitionally a fossil fuel. I mean, it comes from the breakdown of formerly alive life into petroleum products. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I have heard that it comes from like shale and things like that. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge, but whether it's the same as coal or it actually is uh, cleaner when burned, the fact remains that it is definitely not as not better when it is mined. Um, Hydraulic fracturing causes all sorts of issues, contaminated groundwater, uh, just untold devastation. Uh, which is okay because it's better than coal. I don't buy it. What they're trying to do is essentially trying to prevent climate catastrophe, but of course, preventing climate catastrophe will affect billionaires' bottom lines, and we can't have that.
insane. Thankfully, my friends over at FreedomWorks are doing everything they can to stop them. So, if you would like to help them stop AOC's assault on American energy, please text Lauren, that's my name, Lauren, Lauren, to 41490 to sign their petition. If those bills are signed into law, natural gas prices would spike by 400% and destroy more than 14 million jobs. Again, the last thing we need right now. To put that into perspective, their fracking ban would cause more economic harm and destroy more jobs than the financial crisis, the housing bust, and the. It's fine when it happens. We'll talk about it. I actually
Sorry,
think a good amount of petition. We're going to be talking about something that came to combined, not to mention the fact that countless working class families would struggle just to heat their homes in the winter.
Today.
That's why I'm encouraging you, my audience, to text Lauren, again, Lauren, my name, to 414.
So the idea that banning fracking would somehow uh, destroy the economy, given what's going on right now, uh, Billionaires provide most of the work to recover from loss. They just let people go. Interesting you say that because it seems like right now, at least in America and many other nations around the world, it's the workers who are keeping what little infrastructure exists going, uh, not the billionaires. In fact, the billionaires are mostly just holed up in their homes currently. And letting people go doesn't help the economy recover because that means there's fewer people earning money to put back into the economy.
90 to help FreedomWorks stop AOC and Bernie Sanders' assault on American energy by signing their petition. We're going to be talking about something that honestly I'm not even sure really how to feel about, and the feelings that I do have, I actually think a good amount of you may disagree with me. But that's okay. We can have those disagreements. Doesn't mean we still can't be friends. That's fine. When it happens, we'll talk about it. So there is a new concern among trans activists that because of the way anti-rape laws are written in the UK, trans people may be liable of committing rape for not disclosing their biological sex to their partner. I know it sounds confusing. We have an article from The Independent that explains it. Trans people could face rape charges if they don't declare sexual history, warns trans activists. The article reads, a transgender activist has highlighted the issue of gender identity in legal sexual consent, warning that trans people in the UK may face rape charges and potentially jail if they fail to disclose their gender history to their sexual partners.
Okay, let's see the actual argument, because this looks to me like sort of a synopsis. I could be wrong. Let's see. Okay. During a pandemic, that's expected. Outside of a pandemic, punishing billionaires will just negatively impact an economy. That's an interesting thought, except that I don't view taxing them the way they're supposed to be taxed as punishing them, because everyone should pay their share in taxes. Billionaires just get around it because they can buy the government. So, by forcing transgender people to disclose their history to prospective partners, the law is not only infringing. I agree. Having to disclose your gender history to people is definitely an infringement on civil rights. Transgender activists highlight the issue of gender identity and legal sexual consent. According to trans people in the UK may face rape charges, potentially jail, if they fail to disclose their gender history to their sexual partners. Sophie Cook, an LGBT speaker, trans activist, and the first transgender newscaster to appear on European terrestrial TV, says that under UK law, deceiving someone about the nature of a sex act makes them incapable of informed consent. That's an interesting take. It is an offense if a defendant intentionally penetrates the vagina or anus of a person where the other person, right? A person consents for the purpose of the act, he agrees by choice and has the freedom and capacity to make that choice. So this is one transgender activist saying this, that saying that this interpretation of the law, entitled to a private life and the personal choice as to how much is by choice. I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy here, but it seems like what they're essentially saying here is that not knowing that a person is transgender means that they can't give informed consent? I'm not sure that follows. I mean, I agree that it's something that should probably be defined. This also protects the transgender person. People who have been deceived do often violently lash out. True. Well, as an example, a trans woman is a trans woman. The deceived man may brutally beat or even kill. Absolutely. That is, I mentioned that before, the trans panic defense. I forget, it has a different name. It's like the Wharfman's defense or something in England. Um, so, okay, so apparently there's something I'm missing about this that indicates that not disclosing your gender history does count as deception. I mean, I'm see what the guideline. A page not oh mermaids, but page not found. Interesting. But yes, ambiguity is never good for marginalized groups. For duping a female lover into thinking she was a man to embark on a sexual relationship. Okay. I mean, off. The young woman jailed for so went on to mislead a fellow student at Chester University by posing online as a boy. Couple met and had. Okay, so this is definite, like deception. This is deliberate. This is definitely rape. But and I can see how people can use this as a precedent. So okay, I understand a little more clearly now. Yeah, it sends a dangerous precedent for transgendered people. Since okay, I'm understanding now. So yeah, this is definitely something that needs to be defined. There definitely needs to be uh, some kind of discussion or ruling or something about this. So yes, that is definitely not a good thing. That said, it does appear that for once Lauren Chen is uh, showing this at least at this point accurately. Right, right. Relationships do require honesty and trust. Um, but I guess I would say that for for extra relationship sex, you might say, where it's just a one night stand, a Tinder hookup, whatever. Um, unless you unless you could possibly fall victim to the trans panic defense, my thoughts on it are it's not their business. Now, if you do get into some sort of committed relationship, whether it's monogamous or not, then yes, I agree. You should disclose that information, if for no other reason than to have no secrets type thing.
Cook, an LGBT speaker, trans activist, and the first transgender newscaster to appear on European terrestrial TV, says that under the UK law, deceiving someone about the nature of a sex act makes them incapable of informed consent. That means penetrative sex may amount to rape if the partner claimed they were unaware of a transgender person's history. And this is where they get into the actual UK law, which again is written very, very strangely and is actually quite sexist. It's under Section 2 of the Sexual Offences Act 2003. It is an offense if a defendant intentionally penetrates the vagine or butthole of a person, whether the
Come on, Lauren. You're an adult. The vagina or anus of a person.
other person where the other person does not consent and where the defendant does not reasonably believe the other person consents. And they also give a definition of consent, which is a person consents for the purpose of this act if he agrees by choice and has the freedom and capacity to make that choice. So I think the issue here is under that freedom and capacity. Now, I think
For a dating website, there should be a disclosure agreement to the users that they allow transgender people. As long as accounts aren't flagged as like, as long as you can control whether your account is flagged as transgender or not, I agree. Because I feel like if every account is just tagged, if every transgender account is tagged transgender, that's just inviting abuse. But I agree there should be a disclosure that, I mean, I guess I should say that I don't think a disclosure should be necessary. It should be assumed that transgender people are going to be part of the dating mix, um, which maybe needs to be stated for some people. But yes, I agree. There definitely should be some sort of notification like that, if nothing else, than to prevent people from being idiots.
when people talk about freedom of capacity, they're usually referring to things like you can't. It
Yeah, exactly, Veldrain. By the way, if you like what you're seeing, drop a follow.
you can't count it as consent if they're being coerced or if they are, for example, under the influence, right? Which makes sense. But I think lying to your partner about being trans, really lying to your partner about anything before sleeping with them, that's not a good thing.
See, here she's made a little switch here. She's talking about lying to your partner, which I've already said I agree. You should not lie to your partner. That being said, I don't know if I would consider, because this is saying like you hook up at a bar, you don't tell them you're trans, things get heavy, and then the next day or 2 days later they find out that you're trans and they file rape charges. That's what this is talking about. I don't know that it's reasonable for a one night stand if you pass while naked. Just my thoughts on it.
That's morally repugnant. However, is that rape? Now, we're going to get into why these trans activists think no.
Holy shit, I think I'm going to agree with Lauren Chen here.
I don't think it is either. Just because I don't think it's the government's job to ensure that you've properly verified your partner before you choose to sleep with them, right?
I mean, when you're right, you're right. I can't disagree there. If she's, it it shouldn't be classified as rape to uh, to not make sure you've informed your partner, uh, because there's no real harm there, like societal harm, so to speak.
But the trans activist says transgender people are entitled to a private life and the personal choice as to how much of their history they disclose, to the extent that our personal details are locked by HM Revenue and Customs. By forcing transgender people to disclose their history to prospective partners, the law is not only infringing their human rights, it's also
Why do why does the far left consider you a transphobe, Veldrain?
enforcing the bigoted idea that trans people are in some way abhorrent and something that people need to be warned about. That I disagree with, right? Wanting to know whether someone you're sleeping with is transgender does not mean that trans people are abhorrent or, that they need to be warned about, but just understand that for a lot of people, if they're going into a situation assuming that they're with a biological female, and you can't say
Biological females don't exist.
that biological sex is irrelevant when it
Aha, believe in gender. So you believe that there are two genders and no more?
comes to sex, because it's not. That is a really crappy thing for you to do, or for you to want to do as a trans person. And I know people like Blair White who are trans have spoken up and said, like, if you're gonna be getting intimate with someone or even dating them, you need to be honest with that. And I think that's the right choice to make. And why would you be trying to sleep with someone or date someone who you're afraid is going to reject who you?
Well, fortunately, that is a view that can be corrected because that is not the overwhelming view of sociology, uh, the or experience. Gender is a social construct and a spectrum. So uh, it, it's good to admit when you're wrong. Uh, it, there have been societies with more than two genders, with many genders, and really we only have the two recognized genders in very broad strokes.
You really are anyway. It just doesn't make sense on its face. The Crown Prosecution Service says it will not automatically prosecute trans people for having sex by deception, and each case is treated separately. CPS also has guidelines surrounding transgender equality. Previous cases in the public eye have highlighted these ambiguities. So apparently, there actually have been cases in the past where people have been prosecuted for lying about gender identity. So this isn't even speaking in the abstract. This is actually something that has happened. In November 2015, lawyers for Gail Newland, the young woman jailed for 8 years for duping a female lover into thinking she was a man to embark on a sexual relationship, lodged an appeal against her sentence. Legal experts warned at the time that the severity of the jail term created a dangerous precedent for transgender people, pointing out
Blah
that
blah
sleeping with
blah.
them, or I've heard people call it rape by deception, is something that the law should.
I choose not to correct that view of my volition, but I also choose never to mistreat someone based on their beliefs. According to the far left, not believing is a form of hate, so therefore I am a horrible person. So, so what you're saying is that you choose to engage with the aesthetics of uh, agreeing with what is referred to erroneously as transgender ideology, um, but you don't believe it. Why? I mean, that's good that you choose never to mistreat someone. That's excellent. I want to commend you for that. Um, but unfortunately, by accepting gender duality and stating that that is how you believe the world works, how society is constructed, you're denying reality.
Be taking control of, should it still be prosecuted the same as someone who forcibly assaults someone? I don't think so. And again,
And to be clear, I don't think you're a horrible person. I just think that you're misinformed, and so you can be educated, not re-educated, simply properly educated. The information is available to you.
I'm not condoning any of this behavior. It's all terrible. But let's be realistic. It is not the same as someone tackling you in an alleyway and assaulting you. It's not. The article continues, speaking in a recent trans justice conference in London aimed at creating strategies for addressing urgent issues faced by trans people. The activists reinforced the issue by saying, at what point should the disclosure be made? As you're snuggling up in bed and run the risk of a transphobic assault and potentially worse? Or maybe trans people could be made to wear a handy badge on their clothing identifying their history. If trans people should have to disclose this, why shouldn't everyone? Okay, that again, if you're this worried about the person you're about to sleep with taking this the wrong way and potentially beating you up or rejecting you, maybe you shouldn't be sleeping with them in the first place. How about that? Right? I feel like the only reason why this problem exists is because people are trying to be promiscuous.
And yeah, I should have expected her to go there. The only reason this is a problem is because people are promiscuous. Yes, Lauren, people like sex. I know it's crazy. I don't know why anyone. It's messy and sweaty and smelly. Who wants sex? But people enjoy it, so they're gonna pursue it in whatever way they can. Uh, so yeah, this is a problem that real people have to face, not the fictional world that you right wingers inhabit.
And have sex with people they really don't know. And it's like, okay, that's a bad decision. You're likely going to be emotionally hurt by this. That's not the government's job to protect you from that, though. It's awful that you're trying to use the law to protect your lies. And again, I mean, I guess on principle agree with them, but this is for the wrong reasons. The activist also said that surely a racist could complain to a judge that he felt used after realizing that the woman he slept with had previously had a black partner, or the homophobe object when discovering that his girlfriend had experimented with other women at uni. And I feel like
Yeah, that's different. Conservatives have different takes. Sexual intercourse as being more sacred instead of something more akin to breathing or eating. Yes, actually, that's very true. Uh, Conservatives hold sex as a sacred thing. That's very true. Whereas more progressive minds, uh, right? I understand what you're saying, though, Drain. Um, uh, Something more akin to a natural process, which is what it is.
like a lot of you may disagree with the idea that a trans person not disclosing their gender identity to their partner before sex is rape. But think about it. Think about what other things this
Like objectively, sex is a natural biological process. There's nothing sacred about when bears fuck in the woods. I mean, there's nothing inherently sacred or spiritual about sex. It is a purely biological function that releases pleasure pheromones and hormones. So some people can see it as a uh, spiritual experience if you're inclined that way, but it doesn't inherently have those characteristics.
this could apply to. Right? This could apply to all types of things. If you lie about what your salary is before you sleep with someone, a girl, and then she finds out, are you guilty of rape? Maybe she says she only slept with you because of your salary, and because that's not true, it's rape by deception. What then? Or let's see.
Yeah, this rape by deception thing, that really gets because she actually has a valid point here. If you convince a chick that if you're some you know uh 4 follower Twitch streamer and you convince a girl that you're some hot shit top dog uh got a lot of money kind of guy and she sleeps with you, you've deceived her. I would disagree that sacred has zero meaning to someone who is an atheist or is not religious. I am atheist as can be. I have occasionally described myself as an anti-theist, but I still hold things sacred. Sacred just means that you don't uh, you hold them in high esteem above other things. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're to a higher power or anything like that.
If you've ever cheated on your partner, should that be considered rape too? Because your partner probably only slept with you under the assumption that you are a monogamous couple. But if that assumption isn't true, then technically, anytime she slept with you while you were sleeping with someone else, that's also considered rape, right? I feel like this whole rape by deception thing, it's a very
Yeah, and I started to talk about this and I got distracted by the sacred thing. Yeah, if the law in England is that deceiving your partner prior to sexual activities, it technically makes it rape, then yeah. Um, hey, honey, did you take the garbage out before dinner, before bed? Yeah, sure did, sweetie. Bang, bang, bang. Uh, you know, technically that's rape under this deception. Now, the Crown Service said that they wouldn't be prosecuting people for those. They would, each one would be evaluated on a case by case basis. But uh, but still, this does leave a lot of room for selective enforcement. Then you reach the danger area in this, where someone too young decides someone that they are older. To see if someone they are older, someone could be 20 and someone 17. To someone my age, aesthetically, there's no difference with someone 17. Right. Um, except, isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the age of consent in the UK 16? So technically, although I would still agree that, like me, I'm 32. So if I hooked up with a 17-year-old, even I'd be like, ugh. And there's not much difference between 17 and 20 in any real capacity. Um, so if there is that much of an age difference, but that's already in America, someone sleeping. Right. Um, in America, a 30-year-old sleeping with a 17-year-old is definitely illegal. So that's already covered. We don't need to have this alternative rape by deception law. And in the UK, if the age of consent is 16, um, well, then that's already saying that a 17-year-old can give informed consent. Like, that is already what the law is stating. So now, if someone is 17, the age of consent is 16 in where they are, but they say they're 19 or 20, then technically they haven't broken statutory rape laws because they're above the age of consent, but they have deceived their partner. So in that case, I would argue the 17-year-old would be guilty of this crime, but I would also argue that no crime uh, has really been committed.
Very, very dangerous concept. And it also cheapens what rape actually is. This is not a rule that, if applied, would benefit, I think, anybody. Just be
This
more.
shouldn't be a law, period. It's totalitarian law meant to single out people in the trans community. If you deceive someone, there will be consequences already. There should be no legal enforcement of it. Um, yeah, I have to agree with you there. Uh, there, there's not really any situation I can think of where deception would cause societal harm. It would only be interpersonal harm. So yeah, I agree. This is a bad law and should be um, either very, very, very narrowly defined, like for the specific precedent they were talking about, the woman who uh, engaged in an online relationship and then met up and had sex with her partner while her partner was blindfolded using a prosthetic penis. Like, if that's like, there definitely needs to be some sort of law to prevent something like that happening. If that doesn't fall under normal rape uh, uh, statutes. But I agree, just a blanket uh, rape by deception is just rife for abuse.
More selective, be more careful about who you sleep with. Problem solved. And the whole deceptive issue.
Yes, if people were more honest and open and communicative in general, life would be better. I mean, I didn't expect to agree with Lauren Chen this much, to be perfectly honest.
has actually been brought to court and convicted people in the UK before, not just trans people. We have a story here of a man who claimed he had had a vasectomy when he hadn't, also being prosecuted. He's rightly persecuted. That's a really bad thing to do. But we have this from the BBC. A man is challenging his conviction for raping a woman who willingly slept with him after he falsely claimed to have a vasectomy. Okay, willingly slept with him. As far as I'm concerned, that's period. Case closed. It's not raped. Or it's not rape. Doesn't mean what he did was okay, but it's not rape. It says, how can someone be guilty of rape if their partner has agreed to sex, and what implications does the case have?
This does feel a little bit like uh, the retroactively retract consent. Um, that said, I do think that if you sleep with someone under the assumption that you are infertile, whether that's through surgery, nature, or whatever, um, then I do think, God, that is an interesting, because generally speaking, uh, consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy. So if you consent to have sex with someone who says they're infertile and they're lying, then you have not made an informed decision. So obviously, under their concurrent laws, where if they do not have adequate information, they cannot be said to have given informed consent, then this is definitely wrong. Um, boy, that's honestly, I feel like this should not be prosecuted. And I have no law training or experience, but I don't feel like this should be uh, treated as a rape situation. I just think that this should be factored into family court in the situation where a child is sired here. Conservatives aren't bad people, nor are people on the far left. They have the same goal: a harmonious society capable of overcoming challenges. When you have more laws to dictate how society behaves, then you allow further totalitarian laws in the future. Um, yeah, I agree that both left and right, have the same goal: a harmonious society. And I agree that more laws tend to lead toward more totalitarian laws. Um, it's just that both the left and the right have virtually diametrically opposed ideas of how to get there. The right believes that there is a rigid, natural, and immutable hierarchy that people just need to fit into, and the left, uh, depending on how far left you go, either entirely rejects the hierarchy or uh, believes that it is much less than conservatives do.
I have a confession. I'm still fertile. Sorry, XXX. Apparently, I think that was a text that he had sent. Sally, not her real name, was distraught as she read the text message from Jason Lawrence, a man she had met through a dating website. Are you serious? She texted back. You utter bastard. Why the hell would you do that to me? Before Sally had sex with Lawrence, he told her that he'd had the snip, and she consented to having sex without a condom, but would never have done so if she had known Lawrence was fertile. She had also had no idea he was.
Well, yeah, the far right are mostly made up of white nationalists and virulent racists and people like that. Absolutely.
Was a serial rapist. Okay, I feel like the serial rapist thing is actually a bigger deal than the vasectomy thing, but bigger picture here, if you really don't know this guy, which I'm guessing she didn't know him that well because she didn't know all these things about him, you should still use a condom, right? Pregnancy is not the only thing that can go wrong by having unprotected sex. You could get an STI. So this is bad decisions being made overall. Then 42 and already a mother.
Yeah, I agree. If you have sex with someone you're essentially meeting for the first time, maybe had a few online conversations with, wrap your tool. It's as simple as that. That has been the advice I've gotten from every single person, and the advice I've given for to every single person with regards to uh, just sex in general. If you don't want kids, wrap your tool. If if she says she's on the pill, cool, wrap your tool. You know it. Uh, this guy is objectively a shitty person. Like, I don't think he should be labeled a rapist. I don't think he should have that on his record. But he definitely should have. Uh, he definitely should face some sort of punishment. And yeah, it looks like she did become pregnant, but she had it aborted. So, um, I mean, yeah, name and shame this motherfucker. That's my opinion. Yes, poor decisions do lead to consequences. That is true.
Sally did not want another child. She took the morning after pill but became pregnant, then went through the ordeal of having an abortion. Lawrence, previously of Leicestershire, English names, went on to
Leicestershire. It's that fucking simple.
be convicted of raping Sally twice because they'd had sex 2 times in a case with no known precedent in the UK. So again, this is serious stuff. This is actually having an effect on people's lives. And what's also interesting about this case is that a lot of guys might also be thinking, hey, this is great. If this guy is being charged with rape for not actually having had a vasectomy, then if your girlfriend lies about being on the pill or having an IUD or whatever form of birth control it is, then she has raped you, right? And actually, I agree with that. Not that I think either of those things are rape, but if a man lying about being fertile is rape, then a woman doing the same thing should also be rape. And I know there have been horror stories online of guys having their girlfriends do that to them, get pregnant so they can kind of trap them. I'm for equality, right? And I think there is a point to be made there. But what's so, I mean, it's funny, but not really, is that in this article, it actually brings up that argument. But one of the lawyers is like, no, it's not the same thing. So Lawrence's defense barrister, David Emanuel, compared his client's lie about the vasectomy to a woman lying about being on the contraceptive pill. He argued that if Lawrence were convicted of rape for lying about being infertile, then a woman could arguably be convicted of a sexual offense for a similar act of deceit.
True. I mean, again, if one partner says, don't worry, dude, I'm infertile, I can't have kids," and the other person trusts them, but there's no reason for them to know that they're infertile, then they have done a bad. Again, I don't think they should be labeled a rapist, but there definitely should be some consequences. Uh, that being said, in this particular case, it doesn't appear. Well, abortions can be pretty hard on some people. I know that, and there definitely was some anguish here. But that seems more like a civil matter than a criminal one. I don't know that I agree that he has committed a crime here. Uh, Definitely, to some degree, violated um, Sally's personal uh, bodily integrity to some degree. Um, so that is, it's this is a super complex situation.
I completely agree with that. If we're gonna have rape by
With how things are currently set up, if a woman deceives a man into believing she is barren and has a child and chooses to keep it, the guy still has to pay for child support. Yeah, that is very likely what would happen. I agree. Um, and this just goes to how we need to overhaul our family courts. But no, I that is how it is, how the law would generally react to that situation. Now, I agree. Yeah, and it's not right. That definitely is. Um, you know, if the situations were reversed here and she had chosen to keep it, um, he should not have had to take. As shitty as this is going to be on the kid, he should not have to be responsible for that child, because for the same reason that uh, consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy for a woman, it's the same case for a man. If a man has sex, he is not committed. He is not consenting to fatherhood. So, particularly in situations where they have been deceived into believing their partner is barren, I agree. Uh, there should be no expectation of uh, uh, responsibility for the child thus formed, because he never agreed to form one.
By deception be a thing, it needs to be a thing for both genders.
And to be clear, if you have unprotected sex with someone who you do not believe to be infertile, like you just raw dog someone who has not said they're on the pill, um, I do believe in that situation there is some onus on the man to take responsibility for his actions. Uh, but I don't think that a man has a greater right to the consequences of those actions than the mother. Like we have all these laws, men trying to uh, force women to carry a child to term because they don't want their seed to be uh, uh, terminated early. And I don't. No, it's not your body. You don't get to dictate what happens to the woman's body. Sorry.
Under current law in England and Wales, a woman cannot be prosecuted for raping a man because rape is defined under the Sexual Offences Act as an offense of penetration committed with a penis. Super, super sexist. That probably needs to be a segment of a.
I I did not expect to agree with Lauren Chen this much. I agree. That's a super sexist definition for rape. Women can absolutely rape men. Um, people think that because men have to be sexually aroused in order for sex to occur, that it can't be forced on a man. But anyone with a penis know that sometimes it just has a mind of its own, and whether you want it or not, it can get hard. So, uh, you know, contrary to popular culture, men are not unmitigated sex beasts.
Its own someday because that is so antiquated. Legislation in Scotland and Northern Ireland also specifies that rape is committed with a penis. Trash. Miss Russell has a problem with the vasectomy and contraceptive pill comparison. With issues around conception and pregnancy, it's the woman whose body and life and health is affected by that kind of lie. That is not in any way comparing like for like, because it's a woman who has to deal with the consequences of pregnancy and termination, and in the example given, the impacts on the man are not of a comparable kind. Okay, you don't get to say that if at the same time we have things like child support, right? A child affects a man's life in a huge way as well. And don't forget, if a woman gets pregnant, no one is forcing her to actually keep the child and raise it herself. Adoption is always an option. But if a woman goes through with the pregnancy and keeps the child, the man who's involved, the father, does not have a choice in things. So this is some hypocrisy right here. I would love to know what you guys think about this. Again, I'm pretty sure that some of you are going to disagree with me on it. And remember, I'm not saying that deceiving someone before sleeping with them is a cool thing to do. Just go for it. But should it be considered rape? Should it be charged the same way that actual rape is charged? If you ask me, no, I would be, willing to have a conversation about maybe this should be a civil suit or something like that. There may be a possibility for that, but no. Lying to your partner makes you a lot of things, but a literal rapist, I don't think so.
I mean, I may lose my leftist cred for this, but I don't. Except for some of the societal prescriptions, I don't really disagree much with what she said here. Uh, she's she's right. I don't think that deceiving your partner should be uh, crime. Certainly not rape. Maybe some sort of civil suit, something between AOK and the horrible crime of rape. Maybe some sort of sexual assault or sexual harassment charge could be worked in there. But obviously, the laws in England need to be changed. It's easy to disagree with an ignorant person, no matter the party affiliation. Smart people. True. Yes, it is very easy to disagree with an ignorant person. Um, Smart people, it's not so much that it's harder to disagree with, it's harder to argue with them. It's very easy to disagree with a smart person. It's not so easy to disprove their arguments if they, at least if they have good rhetoric along with being intelligent. But once again, this you like what you see, like, share, subscribe, hit that bell, and drop me a follow on Twitch if you want to see me go live. And thank you.